Today, I am joined by Vanisa Siler Brown. She's the founder of the Foundation for Achievement, and I'm going to turn it over to her here in just a second to let her introduce herself, talking about mental health and wellness in law school and how important it is. Because let me tell you something, it is really important. All right, guys, I am going to go ahead and bring Miss Vanisa on, and we will get started. Hello. Thank you
Thank you for
so
having me.
Of course, I'm thrilled that you are joining me. So, just to get started, can you tell our viewers just a little bit about you and what it is that you do?
Yes. So, as she stated, my name is Vanisa Siler Brown. I am currently a practicing attorney. I'm licensed in South Carolina, where I was born and raised, Charleston, South Carolina specifically. Although I'm a practicing attorney, I also founded the Foundation of Achievement. And essentially, what that is it's a coaching program. I like to refer to it as life strategizing. It's a more fancy word, but essentially it's coaching. I coach attorneys and law students, and what my program really hones in on is a holistic approach. Speaking of my law students specifically, I don't teach law, I don't tutor, I provide you the holistic tools necessary to be a high achiever in law school and notably focus on mental health, overall health and wellness. One thing that I preach to my clients and I've seen work is putting a whole lot of emphasis on just taking care of your body. I think we tend to forget that or not realize at least that our brain and our body are not separate entities, right? Your input determines your output. When you take care of your health, you're really taking care of your cognitive health as well. And I've seen it work, but that's what I do. And as far as attorney coaching, I help with burnout. Anyone like me who, although I'm still practicing, I'm attempting to transition fully out of practice, but it's like every time I try to leave, something keeps pulling me back. But assisting with transitioning out of the practice, oftentimes there are attorneys who believe that they're stuck because you've invested all of this time and all of this money into this degree. The only thing I can do is lawyer. This is all I know. Well, I'm here to tell you that that is not it. So that's what I help attorneys with. But yeah, my love is really with the law students. It's such a great feeling watching them start off with me one way, at times on academic probation, and just the progression is phenomenal to watch.
I would love for you to talk a little bit about why you got into this work. I know you touched on it a little bit and how you're trying to transition out of practice, but what made you decide that working particularly with law student mental health and wellness was where you wanted to spend your time and your passion?
A bit of a long story. I want to start to how I even got to the point of
Mhm.
choosing to transition out of practice. One day I realized that myself and my husband, we both cannot be stressed, or at least I don't want both of us to have a whole lot of stress, or at least above average stress. He owns his own business, he has employees. I can't begin to even really articulate the amount of stress that he's under. Me as well. When I was in practice, now I'm a solo practitioner now, but when I was working at a firm, I was probably working a good 60, 70, could be 70 hours a week. And that was very stressful. And it didn't really hurt our relationship at all, but it took a lot of time away from our relationship. So I need to figure a way out. That is where that decision came from. I absolutely love the practice of law, litigation specifically. I was a trial attorney. So then I started thinking, because of course that somewhat paralyzing thought came in like, but all you have is a law degree and a poli sci bachelor's degree, which I'm not out here politicking. So it's like, what am I going to do? So I was paralyzed a little bit in thought, thinking, I can't do anything else though. There's no escape route for me, right? But then I thought, well, what are you good at? And I realized that I'm the strong friend. My entire life, I've been a strong friend. I like being the strong friend. I like being the individual who people come to for a solution. And not only do I feel good about helping people and providing them with solutions, I also loved helping people feel good about themselves and motivating them and helping them develop healthier, better lifestyles. So I started thinking, because I didn't want to transition out of law either. Still want to be involved because I love the field. I have a lot of respect for the field. So I really didn't want to leave it. So I'm thinking, how can I couple the things that I'm good at and I like doing with the legal field without practicing law? And so then I was like, I just help law students and attorneys, law students specifically, help them become healthy while they're in law school and focus on their mental health, and help other attorneys, such as myself, who feel paralyzed when they realize they don't want to practice law anymore. But then it's like, but I can't leave. And I'm here to tell you, you can leave. Leave the practice at least. I just knew that I would be great at coaching law students into being high achievers by steering them into a much healthier lifestyle, and then doing the same for attorneys as well. So that is where Foundation of Achievement came from.
I love it. So much of what you say resonates with me. And I think probably it will for a lot of our future attorneys, our future law students. A lot of us get into this field to help. Moving on a little bit more, you probably could have done a lot of things to help law students, whether it was strictly just regular old physical health. Why did you choose to do either the marriage of the two of them, or why did you choose mental health particularly?
Because I've been there before. So, as a law student, full disclosure, I got to the point where I was placed on academic probation. It came down to a vote, like, we're about to kick this girl out of here. Not ever did I question my intellect or my ability to become a lawyer or grasp or and learn the material. It's just that I had a lot going on in my personal life that was manifesting in my performance in law school. My personal life, dealing with mental health issues. Some people might be familiar with this, but just getting very personal, I have something called polycystic ovarian syndrome. And with polycystic ovarian syndrome, it is something that it affects women solely. I think the percentage of women it affects, last time I checked at least, it was like 28% of women suffer from it. It could possibly be more. But of the many symptoms of polycystic ovarian syndrome, one of them is chronic depression. I dealt with depression. I still do on and off here and there, but I know how to manage it now. Without medication, I'm not a meds girl. So I had to figure out how to deal with my depression in a holistic way. But I was battling depression, and I had just gotten out of a somewhat toxic relationship going right into law school. And also, I was a single mom. It was a lot, it was extremely stressful. And that started showing up in my grades. And I have to shout out my professors who believed in me, Charlene Graham and Dennis Honnebach I didn't shout my college out. Salmon P. Chase College of Law, Northern Kentucky University, my alma mater. Also, University of Cincinnati, go Bearcats, undergrad. Anyway, um, back to business. But they believed in me, and they knew, they knew that I was capable, because if one of them didn't believe in me, I would have been gone, because they gave me one semester to get my act together. I didn't. And then the second semester came around, and they're like, yeah, we got to come down to a vote. But Professors Honnebach and Graham believed in me, and I am forever grateful and indebted to them. After that vote happened, and I found out that I could come back, I took a year off. I just really started working on myself and really started trying to figure out what in my personal life happened and how did I let things fall off the rails to the point where me, capable me, I'm having to go before the academic board, and literally their future, my future is in their hands. How did I let this happen? I needed that time. I believe at least that for me to have not doubted my ability, and for me to be able to recognize that there was some outside forces going on and not so much my ability, that was my saving grace, honestly speaking. Because just thinking of the law student clients, when that happens, there's doubt in abilities. And at times, they're not even able to recognize you got accepted into law school. And there are a lot of considerations that law school admissions councils factor in to the admissions decision. And they're good at this, it's tried and tested. They know what they're doing when they decide to send you an acceptance letter. So if you got accepted, you're definitely smart enough. You can do the work. What else do you have going on that's preventing you from being able to succeed in law school? But oftentimes that doesn't even occur. They just think, maybe I'm not smart enough. Those limiting beliefs, they start flooding their minds. Doubt is an extremely powerful thing. You might be familiar with this, but they say that the highest chance of you passing the bar is the very first time. And it's not because the second and third time, if necessary, it's not because you aren't studying harder or anything of that nature. It has been tied to the lowered self esteem going into
Mhm.
the second and third and fourth exam. That doubt that sets in after you don't pass the very first time, that is what contributes to additional failures, not necessarily intellect or you not working harder the second or third time around. I want to be that little voice in law students' heads saying, hey, you're smart, right? Maybe you should look elsewhere to figure out what the problem is. And that's what I help do. Just going right quickly into
Mhm.
one particular client. The initial consultation, she let me know that she was on academic probation. After she told me everything that was going on in her personal life, I absolutely knew that she was on academic probation because of her personal life. She was doubting her ability to retain the information and to learn. And I remember asking her, I said, have you considered that maybe it's your personal life and not really whether or not you can do this? Because that's one thing she would say often. I'm not even sure if I can do this. And I'm like, I don't think that's your problem, sweetie. You've got a lot of other stuff going on and stuff that she couldn't really help either. And our first few sessions, I would say the 4 coaching calls, she cried every single time. And not because I was asking her anything about what was going on in her personal life, but I would just simply ask, how was your week with school? And as she would talk about her week and studies, she would just start crying. But I immediately got her exercising. I told her to change her diet. I told her to look up foods that have been proven to help with cognitive function. I said, feed your body, feed your mind. I told her about the benefits of exercise and, all the good hormones that are released whenever you exercise. It was a lot that I did with her. And it got to the point where she stopped crying during coaching sessions. Even how she looked changed, not necessarily her physical appearance is of course not her features, but she just looked happier. Crying stopped. I asked her, how are you feeling going into midterms? Like on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being you're completely terrified, 10, you got this. When she said an 8, I was like, yes, that's really good because if I'd asked her that at the beginning of the semester, she would have certainly said 1, probably -5, really. She was extremely downtrodden. So to help her not only work through school, her studies, because another thing I do, although I don't do tutoring and I don't teach law, I teach efficient studying efficiently so you have more time to take care of you. For example, I taught her how to highlight differently. I said, when you start reading these cases, don't just start highlighting as soon as you're in there. I told her, get 2 separate color highlighters, highlight the rule, one color, and then highlight the facts that the court pointed to that were pertinent when they came up with this rule. And then based on what your professor, the sort of questions your professor asked you, use a different color for those. If you know that they tend to ask certain things about cases, it may not have much to do with the rule, but you know that this is something that they'll want to know, highlight that stuff too. Then, it's a lot quicker when you're doing your outline. Really, you should be outlining at the same time. But if you didn't have time to outline right then and there, it's easier to pick out the rule and the important matters right then and there. I even told her to download an app where she can start transcribing notes and things like that. It's like using technology to be more efficient so that you have time to take care of yourself. So as the semester progressed, she got happier. She said she was spending less time studying, but she was learning more and retaining more. And she was just overall confident. And seeing that change in her, witnessing that, it's such a great feeling. And it's so rewarding knowing that I'm legitimately helping her and not just helping her get through law school and get off academic probation, but the stuff that I'm teaching her, this is going to be so helpful once she's actually in practice. Taking care of yourself, that's important, regardless of what you're doing, right? But as law students and future lawyers, attorneys, you will be subjected to an above average level of stress that law school really doesn't teach you to appreciate. You've really got to consider that. And I've noticed there are some changes. There are some law schools that are starting to employ mental health counselors. They're just employing different things to help really focus on students' mental health. But when you're faced with above average stress levels in perpetuity, y'all will learn about the rule against perpetuities. I hated that word in law school, but now I like that word. It's a good word, perpetuity. But anyway, when you get to the point where you are subjected to above average stress in perpetuity, when you're in practice, it's going to be so important to take care of yourself. So it just feels great teaching her things that will help her way beyond law school. And just seeing the changes, I absolutely love it. And I wish that I had me while I was going through what I was going through in law school. So, really, that's why I decided to really focus on mental health when it comes to law students, because I've been there before, struggling with depression, mental health all out of whack. It impacted me. And I remember that feeling. I don't think I've ever been that scared in my life when I stood before those three professors and literally begged them to let me stay, let me stay. Not only was I scared, but I was embarrassed as well. I felt like I'd let myself down, and not only myself, but my grandfather as well. And I never told him that I was placed on academic probation either. But yeah, if someone shows him this clip, now he knows. So, but yeah, that's why I got helping law students out.
I love that. I wish I had had you when I was a 1L, for sure. Was on academic probation for a semester, had no idea how to take care of myself. Would have loved to learn how to highlight, because I don't think I ever learned how to do that particularly well. I ended up being an underline girl that sort of, I mean, I graduated, so it worked a little bit, but
yeah.
Whew, that first couple of months of highlighting, I completely inefficient.
Yeah, the highlighting gets you, because then when you get in class and you're reading the case and you've highlighted every other, because when you first start law school, you think all of this is important. So I'm gonna just highlight all of it, right? But then when you get cold called and you didn't have an opportunity to outline, and you don't really remember that case because you had about 4 others that you read, you're like, the whole class is silent as you're looking for the rule. Like, oh, what was that rule again? See, if that rule was pink and everything else was yellow, you would have found it quicker.
I still remember the tragic cold call day, and I graduated from law school 10 years ago now. I remember the day in my first year of law school when I was that person. So coming from law schools, before I was a consultant, I worked as an admissions officer, and you said a couple of things that have really resonated with me coming from sort of the other side of it. First thing, I cannot thank you enough for reminding students that the admissions committee knows what they're doing when they admit them. I had that conversation so often with students after their first set of grades came out, or if they didn't get a job. It was always shocking to me that how quickly they started to doubt themselves. And it's like, no, but I was on that committee. Like, I know what they went through. I know how they worked out. We don't admit people we don't think can succeed. That is our whole job. And we take it very seriously, because at the end of it, if we're setting you up for 3 years of law school, that is time, that is money. And if you can't pass the bar exam, if we don't think you'll be successful in that, there's a very real chance you're going to be stuck with paying for law school for the rest of your life. And none of us want to do that. Or at least none of the committees that I ever worked on. I can say with great certainty they did not want to do that. Somebody out there may. I don't know. But the folks that I know that work in admissions, that's not what we're here to do. And the other thing is how important it is to really figure out how to keep both your body and your mind healthy. And making sure, like I said, I wish I would have had you when I was a 1L. I'm fairly certain that I subsisted on cereal for more than half of the semester in my first year. It is not the only thing that you can eat as an adult, or really as a child either. Like, you have to take into consideration there are other things your body needs. Again, thank you for being so transparent. I'd love it if you had any one or two pieces of advice that you had for law school applicants or, first year students would be great. Is there one or two things that you would really want them to know as they're going into this process, whether it's starting the application or we've got students that are going to be starting in the fall in their first year of law school?
The very first thing, and one of my mentors, shout out to Marvin Mitchell, he this lives in my mind, something that he said, limiting beliefs. Beware of either adopting limiting beliefs or allowing other people to impose their limiting beliefs upon you. It is not your job to convince anyone else to believe in you. It's your job to convince you that you can believe in you. You must sell yourself to you. Period. Law school is not the forum for developing self-esteem. You will go in there and you will feel stupid sometimes. You will get cold called and not know what to say and not know how to respond. And oftentimes, law students are individuals who sailed through high school, sailed through undergrad, nothing but A's, nothing but B's, and you finally get your first C when you arrive in law school. And now you're panicking. And now you're believing that maybe you aren't as smart as you thought you were, that limiting belief that maybe I can't do this. And be hyper aware of that. Don't just be aware of that, be hyper aware of that and learn how to check it. Self esteem is extremely important. And convincing yourself that you are capable is important. That's something you have to nurture, right? I know I've been talking about taking care of your body, but you have to nurture your self esteem as well. And one way that you can do that is by literally paying yourself compliments, looking up in the mirror. This is why I've told clients in the past, get up in the morning and look in the mirror and pay yourself a compliment. This is science backed. Whenever you pay yourself a compliment or whenever someone pays you a compliment, certain hormones are released. And I believe it's the reward system as well in your brain that is triggered, and then the motivation system as well. I'm not going to get too scientific and start throwing out the names of it, but I'll just say the reward center and the motivation center. Those are triggered whenever compliments are paid to you. So it is best to pay yourself compliments as much as you possibly can. And you have to look at yourself while you're doing this. And I always say, you're going to feel stupid looking in the mirror saying, I'm smart, I'm smart. But how your brain works and how your subconscious mind works specifically, your environment and the things that you hear, the people you're around, your subconscious mind absorbs all of that. Your subconscious mind is adopting those beliefs, and your subconscious mind governs your conduct, and you're not aware of it. So, if you've convinced your subconscious mind that you're all of these great things, subconscious mind is going to help govern your conduct so that those great things actually manifest in what you're doing. You start retaining more when you're studying because you've convinced yourself that I can learn this material. So you actually start retaining more of it. You actually start understanding it better. So nurture your self esteem and do not poison your brain with limiting beliefs, and don't allow other people to poison your brain with limiting beliefs, because self-confidence is an overlooked thing that is absolutely essential when you are in law school, because like I said, it is no forum for building self-esteem. You're going to have to do all of that yourself, all of it. Second thing I would say is establish boundaries. Learn now to establish boundaries. Boundaries are extremely important because, believe it or not, that will help with your mental health. And this is how. There's this thing that a lot of us like to call work ethic. We confuse working long hours with work ethic. And if you think of the word ethic, right? Ethic, that has to do with morals and principles. When I think of work ethic, I think of, let's say I'm a call center representative and working at a call center, an angry customer calls in and I know they're angry. Work ethic is you adopting the attitude, when this person gets off the phone with me, I'm going to make sure they're happy and they have a changed attitude. That is work ethic. Work ethic in lawyering is often just working long. That's not the same thing. That's duration. Duration and morale, those are two separate things, right? And oftentimes we're encouraged to work longer because we'll have superiors who say, I love your work ethic. I see you, you're going in 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. You've got great work ethic. That's not work ethic. You're working long. So establish boundaries within yourself. I'm not going to work past a certain hour. I'm going to turn my phone on, do not disturb. Those are boundaries that you're imposing upon yourself, right? That friend who's always calling you to pile on you because her and that boyfriend she refuses to leave or keeps leaving and going back to have gotten into it again. Establishing that boundary where you say, listen, today's not a good day for you to pile on me. And I would appreciate it if you started asking me before you start piling on. Ask me, like, hey, is this a good time? Learn to establish boundaries so that you can protect your mental health because working long hours is stress. You won't be on a construction site working for 14 hours a day. That's physical stress. But there's still that mental stress in law school and also once you're out in practice. But learn now how to set boundaries while you're in law school so that once you're in practice, that doesn't become a problem. Because, as I stated, if you're the strong friend now, you're resolving boyfriend problems, you're about to be resolving all their legal problems too. So now the calls are doubling up. Learn now to establish boundaries so that you can take care of you and protect your mental health and your overall wellness.
I love that, and it's so true. Boundaries are so helpful, and taking the time to really settle into your self-esteem, your sense of self can be so helpful because I'm sure probably any law student or any law graduate at this point has had that moment of, am I supposed to be here? Am I smart enough to do this? I didn't get my first C in law school, but I definitely saw more than I ever had before when I was still figuring it all out, and it's not a good feeling.
It isn't.
You get used to it eventually, but it's rough that first couple of times.
Yeah,
It's rough. This has been wonderful. I know that you said that you work with practicing attorneys as well. Is there anything that you would change from the advice that you have for our current law students or future law students if you were talking to a practicing attorney instead?
my advice would be don't be afraid to get out. That's how it would change. Because I don't want to tell a law student, don't be afraid to get out, because that's not a good idea once you're in. It's just stick with it. It's
Mhm.
if you want to do it and you start doing it, that money's already been invested, stick with it. So that's how I would differ. Because I honestly felt stuck. And that in and of itself brought about a lot of anxiety, thinking that I've invested all this time, I have this law degree. What else can I possibly do with my life? And just the thought of, well, I could go back to school and learn something else, that's more debt. No one wants to do that. But there are options. And even if it is about earning a living, we have a skill set. We have a lot of skills just as attorneys that fall out that can be applied to various other things that you can monetize. So, really, you can get out. You just really have to sit and think, what am I good at? And how can I monetize what I'm good at so that I can continue to make money and be less stressed out while I do it?
So many of my friends, again, I said earlier, I'm going on about 10 years out of law school, and I have several friends who went directly into practice, and they're like, I bet I could maybe do something else. Practice has been fine, but maybe it's time for a change.
Yeah, it's so important. And I'll say another thing.
Mhm.
One thing I do want to say, mental health
Mhm.
in amongst attorneys is so important. I'm noticing that there are a lot of individuals, a lot of the younger generation that I'm noticing of new attorneys who are not willing to stick around and be subjected to all of the stress or bad law firm culture. They will leave. And we don't need caring attorneys leaving the field. You don't need the good ones who actually care, who really love it, but they love themselves more, so they choose to leave. Those are the people we really need to remain in practice. And I do believe that and I'm not going to say that state bars do not focus on attorney mental health. They do. I know for a fact that the South Carolina Bar, they've partnered with a third party company outside of the bar for free counseling sessions. So there is there's a lot of care there within the bar, but it's a lot of issues, mental health issues going on, and it needs to be addressed more.
Mhm.
That way, we can keep the good lawyers who are leaving because they care about their mental health. So they're like, I love law. I love myself more, so I'm leaving. We've got to focus on that. We make too much of an impact. For us to make up such a small percentage of the population, we impact that other larger percentage of the population who aren't attorneys. And our impact is so important that we need good attorneys around. And we really need to start focusing more on mental health because we're losing good attorneys because of it. They aren't putting up with it, or they're succumbing to their inability to healthily deal with their stress. That's something that's extremely important in our field. We're losing too many good attorneys to this mental health issue.
It's true. And you're not wrong. It's nice. In probably the last 5, 6 years, it seems like both law students and the state bars are starting to pay a little bit more attention. They're starting to resource a little bit better. I mean, I was working in an admissions office and still had students coming into my office when they were having a moment or they needed someone to remind them that they could, in fact, do what they were there to do.
Yes.
And like, I don't have that. I mean, I'm happy to tell them that because I know that they are capable, but I was never trained to deal with mental health issues. I have an international studies degree and a law degree. Like, that's not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
I love my students and will do as much as I can for them, but a lot of the time I was like, here's the counseling center information if you really need to talk to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's tough when it's, particularly with large schools, if you're funneling professional school students, particularly law students, into a main campus counseling center. They're competing with 20, 30,000 other students.
Right.
I have several memories of students telling me how difficult it was to find good mental health care as students if they did not have a way to get it outside of the universities. And it is very, very, very reassuring to see that law schools particularly are starting to take it a little more seriously, that they're hiring on mental health professionals, that they are realizing that maybe scaring one else to death is not the best way to teach them.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I don't learn super well when I'm scared, so I can't imagine that most people do. But it's nice to start seeing a kinder, gentler law school and a kinder, gentler legal profession, I guess. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for spending time with me today and for spending time with our audience. Vanisa, if you want to give us an outro, if you've got things that you would like to tell us about as far as what you do in your work with Foundation of Achievement, we are happy to give you that space as well.
Yes, so with Foundation of Achievement, we actually have a webinar coming up. I believe it's the 26th of this month. We have a webinar. It's absolutely free. The webinar is Mind, Body, and Law, a holistic guide to surviving and thriving in law school. Essentially, what I'll be discussing in that webinar is pretty much the toolkit that I provide my clients with to help them succeed in law school. Well, more of a condensed version, of course, whatever I can fit in within an hour's worth of time. So yes, I will be hosting that Sunday on the 26th of this month, and I will be appearing with two of my law school classmates who are now practicing attorneys. I had to reach in and get some help on the panel, really, so I can have them offer some advice and how they got themselves through personal struggles that they may have encountered while in law school and even now in practice. So that will be the main topic with that. And I actually have a book coming out this summer as well, Mind, Body, and Law, and Holistic Guide to Surviving and Thriving in Law School. Yes, the webinar is named after the book. That will be coming out this summer. And yeah, I'm just going to continue to help law students see how well they can be and how high achieving they can be if they just believe in themselves, and helping lawyers escape if they want to escape. That is.
Only if they want to, though.
Right, right. I'm not, I don't want anyone feeling stuck anywhere because, as I mentioned before, our impact is too great for you to be there when you no longer want to be there. How can you provide competent and diligent representation when you don't want to be there? How competent will your representation be?
There has been some question about where people can find you on the internet.
Yes, so on Instagram, and I need to get better with my content creation, but on Instagram, you can find me at The Thoughtful Attorney on Instagram. You can learn more about Foundation of Achievement at my website, VanisaSiler.com, and I'll spell that VANISA. You can learn more about Foundation of Achievement. I'm also on LinkedIn under my name, Vanisa Siler Brown.
This is, like I said, this has been wonderful. For our viewers, if you are not subscribed at any point, please do. If this video is helpful, please like it. Share it with a friend that may need it when it goes up later today. Regardless of which platform you found us on, share that video around. There is great advice that has been given today that was totally free. Please share it. And then for those of you that are sticking with us for a little bit, I want you to pay close attention to our social media. In the next week or so, we have a big announcement coming that I think you guys are all really going to like. By the time you're seeing this, we will have announced our dates for the second annual Break Into Law School conference. You can check out all the information on it at breakintolawschool.vferris.com. Thank you guys so much again for joining us today. This has been wonderful. We will see you same time next week. Bye, everyone.